Greetings and welcome to another tarot presentation on a rare sunny day. It's bitterly cold out there. I think it was -5, -6 degrees in the night, and it's still below freezing at the moment, but it's a nice sunny day. And but I'm back in my daughter's bedroom because it's kind of better set up for this presentation. Very good light, and I have a table. I'll flip the camera in a moment, but I didn't really know what to call this video. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I think it's something like tarot decks that shouldn't work. And it's very subjective. This whole presentation is very subjective. It's really about those decks that when you first look at them and subsequent views of it, they don't really grab you. They don't have that wow factor. And I think on YouTube, when we look at these presentations, it's quite often that they're very beautiful decks because people want to show off their beautiful decks, and I enjoy that. And I think it's definitely worth collecting attractive decks that that mean something to you, that you feel a connection with immediately. But in reality, are they necessarily the decks that work for you when you're trying to read and gain a deeper understanding of the tarot images? And I think over the many years that I've been collecting and reading the tarot and the decks I have, which aren't that many compared to some people, I have found that it's not necessarily the decks that have that wow factor that I want to turn to and I find more useful. So that's what this is about. It is very subjective, and some people will probably disagree profoundly with my choices. And you know, I did think at one point to call this ugly decks that work, and that's not fair because they're not ugly. There are issues with them that I will address, and we can have a look at it, and then hopefully if you feedback and let me know why you think I might be trying to get this message across, what's going on there with me and other people. I'm not alone in this by any means. We'll talk about that. So I'm going to flip the camera around and I'll demonstrate what I mean on camera. Bear with me. So I flip the camera. Here on this pile is my deck of what I would call the artistic successes, what some might call the pretty decks. And over here, just out of shot, I have what I would call my wonky decks. And there's one in particular that I'm going to show in a bit more detail because it doesn't get enough airtime. It needs a bit of a boost, I think. So what are the artistic successes in my collection? Well, let's go through them. The Pierre Madenier 1709 deck. This is a beauty. Some of you have seen this before. I have a review of this deck, but the faces are so beautiful and the colours are delightful, and it's really well executed. And for a facsimile Tarot de Marseille, it does strike you as probably the most attractive available today. So definitely in the pretty category. Next one is very different. This is a modern deck, kind of a photo montage deck from Baba Studios. It's in the esoteric Rider-Waite tradition. So the symbolism is completely changed. And I do like this deck, although I'm not particularly into the Rider-Waite Smith tradition decks these days. I do like this deck. The images are gorgeous. It's the Victorian Romantic Tarot, and it's a very good storytelling deck. I like it a lot. I should use it more. Another stunningly beautiful deck is the Ancient Italian. Almost every image in here is lovely for an older deck. The pip cards are particularly pretty, very ornate. The court cards are very glamorous, beautiful queens and handsome kings. As you can see, it's a delight. One of the nicest cards, I think. Let's find it. It's going to be the last one, isn't it? Yes, the star card. It's a beautiful star card, and quite unusual actually, because she's staring straight at you. But yeah, it's a gorgeous deck. So that one is definitely a triumph for the creator. Next one, the most well-known deck in the world by quite a margin still. It's been around just over 100 years now. It's not, I don't really count it as an old deck. And although it's a deck I never use, and I just cannot relate to it, I cannot deny it. It is a beautiful deck. I mean, artistically, Pamela Coleman-Smith did a great job on this, and I'm very attracted to the images. This is the strange thing that I don't get, is I do really like the images and the style of arts and crafts technique. As you see, it's in order because I don't really use it. So artistically, I think that is a triumph, and I can totally understand why it's very popular. I was so eager to get that when I was in my late teens, and you know, I'd wanted it so much, and when I got it, I kind of convinced myself that this was it, and I really, you know, I was going to love this deck. This is it now. It didn't work that way. I just couldn't, and I still can't use it. Anyway, that's the Rider-Waite-Smith. And finally, the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. To my mind, this is the greatest tarot deck artistically. It's one which I do consider is art rather than illustration. It's the work of a bit of a genius, really, which is Lady Frida Harris. There's some absolutely gorgeous images here, so well executed. There are also, and I know some people disagree with this because they're very attached to the Crowley deck, there are some, in my opinion, really ugly images as well. I won't point out what, because it's very subjective anyway. An ugly image to me might be a thing of beauty to somebody else, but that's my opinion. I think sometimes it can step into vulgarity and just a bit too much going on. But overall, definitely an artistic triumph. And I can see why people want this deck. And I can work with this one, actually. Although I have mixed feelings, and I love it artistically, I think the philosophy underlying it is nonsense. But it does kind of work. I've had some very good readings with it. So that's a triumph. So they're what I would call the artistic successes. Then there are ones that are kind of in the middle that I'm not showing you. They're kind of mixed. And then the ones which are my wonky decks. And what I mean by that is there are imperfections of some sort. Let's turn that light on, it's reflecting. So they may not strike you at first glance as attractive decks, but they have their good points and they work. So first up, the Paul Marteau Tarot de Marseille. So what is it about this that makes it one of these imperfect decks? Well, the lines are quite crude, the colours are fairly simple, and there's some weird symbolism occasionally in. But you know, you put it out on a table and it looks kind of good. And sometimes I feel it works on me. It's quite nice and easy to read. And for me, again, it's subjective. I kind of like the look of it. But at the same time, I recognise it's not an artistic triumph by any means. Next up was my second ever tarot deck. This is actually reprinted. which is the Sheridan Douglas from the late 1960s. It's a Rider-Waite Smith, but some divergence, good ones as well. It's very much of its time. People either love it or hate it, I think. I like the style of the illustrations. Some things are just awful. Some of the colour choices, you think, what was he thinking there? And other times, it's just beautiful. Good devil card there. So there's a quick look through. Definitely of a 60s, 70s style. It was the creator's stepson that drew them. He died quite young, actually, soon after he created them. He wasn't a trained or a professional artist, but he was a very good amateur. And I think that's about the level you see here. It's the work of a very good amateur artist. The court cards are a bit poor, actually, in this deck. And I've had good results with that, and I enjoyed that for a long time. Nice, easy deck to read, actually. The cardstock is amazing quality. Really exceptionally good cardstock in that one. So that's the Sheridan Douglas. Next is a controversial one. There's a Jean Noblet. And that's only because I don't think it's an ugly deck by any means. I think the images are fantastic. I think artistically they're fantastic. But I can see why some people would not think that. They might find the images a bit too crude. But they're really not. It has hidden depths. But looking at some of the tarot forums, I do get the impression some people struggle to relate to this deck. It doesn't always immediately hit people as a great deck. And it's a shame because it's one of my top. This is my top 3 actually. Very good for reading. Next one is Spanish Tarot. I have 2 versions of this. This is the older one, the original print run. The colours are a bit different. I quite like the new one actually. A lot of people criticise the new one for its colours and the orange faces, but I quite like it. Lovely cardstock in this one, by the way, and nice size cards. So again, artistically, some of the drawings are a bit odd. The faces are very variable. Some lines can be a bit crude, but I quite like it. There's nice variation in the line work. Have a quick look through it. Strength faces that. The creature there is very ambiguous. And it's based on a fairly old deck, but I think it was actually drawn in the 70s. It's very hard to get information about this deck. It's kind of a mainly type 1, but a bit of type 2 Marseille. I love his face, that's great. So a very variable. The court cards are great. They've got fantastic character in their faces. And it's a nice deck for reading. Okay, it may not have the wow facts. It might look a bit like the style of a children's illustration, which is something I actually really like about it. Oh, look at that. That purple horse is just brilliant. I love it. A very nice deck, and actually quite popular with people that own this deck. It gets well used. It's recommended, definitely recommended. And then finally is the Krebs deck, published by Piatnik in Vienna. So a little bit about this one, from the 18th century. I think the region was the Black Forest region of Germany, although it's a French deck. It has a strange mixture of some type 1, type 2 and Besançon choices. Unfortunately, the box is a bit too small and it's very tight. If you've had decks like this where you struggle to get the cards in and out and you worry you're going to bend them, so here is the prime example. This is the box I now keep it in, which is actually really well made. I don't like this image, but it's really good. This deck's it's probably my #1 reading deck now. So here's a prime example of a deck where there are lots of imperfections. The colour choices are sometimes a bit bizarre. There's fading in the background colour. You can see it with these two actually. This one's creamier than this one, so it's very inconsistent. Some of the drawing goes off a bit. Some of the stenciling is blurred and overlaps. The faces are sometimes very characterful, to put it politely. Like his very small head. A stencil here that bleeds over quite crudely. The Pope looks, somebody described him looking like a walrus. And again, you can see through here the red stencil, quite crude. Here it overlaps. The colours aren't strong, but they're very. I think you can see it in the slide. It's a fairly good representation. The colouring is just nice and harmonious somehow, and quite relaxing. And I find it one of those happy decks, like the Spanish Tarot. It has a nice, happy feel about it. The faces have great character. The symbols are actually very accurate to the tradition. You can't fault it for that. Quick look through it. I'll try and put some of the better cards from this deck, or the ones I like most. I'll try and insert them into the video if I can work it out. Oh, look at that full card. That's really faded lines, and you know, it's very rough and ready. But I kind of like that. And here the faces. I love the sun card. I love the face, and I love the wall that's like an enclosure. It's very nice. The Queen of Batons is usually one of the most glamorous queens in the tarot tradition, but an odd one there. I like this Wheel of Fortune as well. That's one of my favourites. Oh, she looks like she's not somebody to mess with. A lot of use of ermine in the and a fleur-de-lis in the robes. It's got these hidden details that you don't notice straight away. What you probably notice straight away is and this was me, it was like, oh, compared to other reproductions, that's a really crude deck. You know, the line work here, the printing is all over the place. The faces aren't very well drawn, but actually, you grow up. I love the Moon card as well. I love that face and the colours. Nice Lovers card as well. Oh, there we go. Freiburg and Brisgau. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but I believe it's in the Black Forest area of Germany today. The Hermit card. I think it's possibly my favourite Hermit card of any deck. I absolutely love this Hermit. That's marvellous. I like this very pink House of God. Oh, the face. Strength, the Force. So there we go. That's the Krebs deck. You know, you form your own opinion on it, obviously, but I can assure you that, you know, I wasn't drawn to it at all. I didn't think it had any wow factor, but once I got it, it crept up on me, and then slowly I really started to connect with it, and using it, it's a delight. And historically, it's very faithful. One other thing to note is the card stock. This is the backs of the cards. I love the backs of the cards. The card stock is exceptional. It's possibly the best card stock I've ever come across. It's just amazing. It shuffles, got flexibility, but it's strong, not too shiny. I can't fault the card stock. It really is quite something. And it's not a very expensive deck. I mean, it's printed by Piatnik. You know, they're a mass card producer. so they can keep costs down, and it was very, very affordable. And you can get it in the usual places like Amazon and so on. Yeah, just a nice, happy style. So these are, I'll put that there so I'm not just a voice and a blue cloth. These are kind of decks that, for me, they work at a more subliminal level. And I think part of this is helped by that you're not distracted or over-focused on the images and its beauty and the skill in execution. I think especially for me, because I'm also an artist, is I do look for, you know, artistic details and what has helped them to create that and their influences. And sometimes when I'm reading the tarot, I don't want to think about that. I need to put that to one side and just concentrate on the images and the stories that they're telling and their meanings. So for me, it almost helps not to have a beautiful deck, because I'll be focused in on the skill of the artist and the balance of imagery, and I don't really need to do that. So instead, what I want to do is just to get an impression of the overall colours and the kind of the universality of the images. They don't have to be accurate. They don't have to be super detailed. They just need to trigger that subliminal part of the consciousness to get to the meaning of the cards. And I find that quite freeing. It gives me a bit more freedom to interpret what I'm seeing. So I think, you know, for me, in this deck, the notable cards is definitely that Hermit and the Moon and the Sun. I even like the Judgment card with its strange faces. I like Justice's crooked face and the Star and the colours of the Tower. I was thinking, one thing that makes me... Yeah, I was trying to think of how to put this. I think my best comparison is, it reminds me of this deck of the relationship you have with a beaten up teddy bear. In that, yep, it's old, it's rough around the edges, but you can easily become attached to it. And I think when also you don't get too precious about it, because it doesn't look perfect, so you'll get it out. You won't worry about maybe bending a corner or handling it a lot. You can handle this a lot anyway, because the cardstock is so good and it's not too expensive, and you know, it just means you'll use it. And I think also, if you're doing a reading with another person, the other person looking at this deck is going to struggle a bit to understand what you're seeing, because it's working at your subliminal level. The images don't shout out about what they mean, like a Rider-Waite-Smith, and they're not going to... The way I describe it is they're not kind of looking over your shoulder and trying to preempt your reading. Sometimes that helps. I've nothing against that. I think you can work cooperatively with a querent to get to a good understanding of a reading, but sometimes they want you to give them the reading and what you're seeing, and they don't want to interfere with that. And I think this deck is particularly good at that. So I'll try and keep this fairly short, and I'm going to stop there. What I would love is if anybody, one, watches this video, and hopefully if they like it, but also if you do feel like commenting, if you could perhaps give your opinion on, well, one, you know, if you disagree with my opinions on the pretty decks and the wonky decks, you know, do say, but also why you think it might be that the decks like this can work better for reading than the decks which make you go, wow, that's beautiful and stunning. Because I think they are in two different camps here. And I'm not about to give up my beautiful decks, because I love looking at them, and I can read with them to some extent, apart from Rider-Waite-Smith, which I can't work with. But, you know, if there's the three that I probably turn to the most it's this one, the Jean Noblet, and the Ancient Italian. I use one of those three depending on what mood I'm in, on what I want, what the subject's about. So anyway, hope that was interesting. Let me know in the comments section, and please give your opinions and your views and insights on this. That will probably be it for me for this year. My plan is probably for the new year is to do a video on the Lenormand Oracle decks, which I'm not an expert on, but I have some experience of. But I'd like to show you how I've used it, and that one would definitely benefit from some feedback from people who know a bit more about it and can help me to get better with those Oracle decks. Okay, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.